Hey Twisters, so today I'm going to actually predict every NHL team's leading scorer for the 2022-23 season, so leader in points that is, not goals, but I could do that in a separate video if you are interested. So the way that this will work, I'm going to sort this from the most easy to predict in my opinion to the most difficult to predict, and this is assuming that these players are healthy for the full 82 games and that they don't get traded at any point, although for some of these guys that is definitely a possibility. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments down below. Who are each team's leading scorer for this upcoming season? You could do all 32 teams, and let me know if you have any particular hot takes. So without further ado, let's get into it, okay? So for me, the easiest team to start with is the Chicago Blackhawks because Alex DeBrincat was traded in the offseason. So it's going to be Patrick Kane. No surprise here. I don't see why he can't be at least a point per game player this upcoming season. And even if he was traded, I would not be surprised if Kane was the leading scorer for the Blackhawks through the full 82 games. That's how much of a difference I think there is between him and the next best player or two. So that one was pretty easy in my opinion. Next up, we got the Minnesota Wild, and it's going to be Kirill Kaprizov. Again, Fiala was traded in the offseason to the LA Kings. I think he would have been the biggest competition for this upcoming season. Matt Boldy would probably be the next in line, but even so, Kirill has asserted himself as one of those above a point per game players in the NHL. This past season, 81 games, 47 goals, and 61 assists for 108 points. Now, to be honest, I don't know if I see him exactly eclipsing that total. I think that he'll drop down a little bit, but there's no reason why this guy couldn't at least be in the upper 90s this upcoming year. Another team that was easy to predict, the Washington Capitals, it's Alex Ovechkin. So certainly one thing that contributes to this is the fact that Nicholas Backstrom is having troubles with injuries. Tom Wilson's also injured. Evgeny Kuznetsov would probably be the next in line to put up a fight for the scoring title, but Ovi is still over a point per game. This past season, 77 games, 50 goals, 40 assists for 90 points. And with those injuries to the Capitals, I think that Ovi is going to have another great season and maybe even eclipse that. He could possibly reach his highest point total, I think, since 2009-2010. Next up, the Boston Bruins. I don't think this one's particularly crazy. It's David Pastrnak. One huge factor here is that Brad Marchand is going to be injured to start the season. Bergeron is still going to be a key contributor to this team, but Pastrnak, he's going to be a UFA at the end of this season, and he's going to be trying to put the team on his back to get them back into the playoffs. This past season was a bit of a downer for him. 72 games, 40 goals, 30 assists, or 37 assists, I'm sorry, for 77 points, but I think he busts this open. He's back in the mid-90s, I would think, by the end of this upcoming season. Next up, Columbus Blue Jackets. I'm thinking it's going to be Johnny Gaudreau because really there's a big gap between him and the next player in line, somebody like, I don't know, maybe Patrick Laine, and eventually some of that young talent will really come through for the Blue Jackets, but for now, it's Johnny Hockey's team. This past season with Calgary, 82 games, 40 goals, 75 assists for 115 points. I think he's definitely going to be lower this season, but he has a good line mate in Laine, and also he's got Boone Jenner, so I still think that he could certainly compete for 95 to 100 points this upcoming season. Now, for the Calgary Flames, I've selected Jonathan Huberdeau, of course, part of that Matthew Tkachuk trade. So, yeah, he's going to be playing alongside Elias Lindholm, who continues to get better every season offensively. And he also has maybe Tyler Toffoli or maybe Andrew Mangiapane. So I like this situation for Huberdeau quite a bit. I think he could be around at least 105 in his new environment there with the Calgary Flames. Next up, Toronto Maple Leafs. It's Austin Matthews, right? The reigning Hart Trophy winner. Now, Mitch Marner, you got to give him some credit. He was only 9 points behind Matthews, but I think that Austin's going to even top last season, I'm going to be honest with you, because it started a little bit slow for him, and then he just erupted, right? So total, he only played 73 games, 60 goals, 46 assists for 106 points. I think that maybe he'll actually flirt with a $1.15 for this upcoming season. Now for my team, the San Jose Sharks, I've selected Timo Meier. He'll be an RFA at the end of next year, so he wants to get that big fat paycheck. He does play with Tomas Hertl, which definitely helps, who would also be kind of the biggest competition to usurp the scoring title. But I think that Meier is still going to show that he has upwards of 35 goal potential. Actually, that's how many he scored this past season in 77 games for a total of 76 points. I think he's going to be over 80 this upcoming season to earn a big paycheck. Next up, we've got the New Jersey Devils. I've selected Jack Hughes. Now, he was injured for a lot of this past season. I think it's going to help playing with Andre Palat, who came over in free agency. Jesper Bratt had a fantastic year at about a point per game. But Hughes, I think he takes that big step forward. If you haven't already, guys, check out my breakouts videos that I filmed recently. So I did a breakouts video for centers, defensemen, and wingers. I mentioned this because Hughes was on the cover of was the thumbnail for my centers video. So this past season, 49 games played, 26 goals, 30 assists for 56 points. I think that he could easily be a point per game player this upcoming year and just edge out Jesper Bratt, I would think, for the scoring leader for the Devils. Next up for the Dallas Stars, I've selected Jason Robertson, certainly coming on strongly toward the end of the year and playing pretty well in the playoffs as well. Joe Pavelski led the team in scoring, but I think Robertson's going to take over here. He did miss a few games this past season as well. Big age difference between the two as well. So I think Robertson is certainly making his way into the NHL as a superstar. This past season, 74 games, 41 goals, 38 assists for 79 points. I think he's going to get close to 90. I think Robert Hintz is a fantastic player as well. But just in terms of offensive upside, Robertson is pretty amazing, I gotta say. Next up, New York Islanders, I've selected Matthew Barzal. I think he's due for a big bounce back year. He really has to assert his role in the organization going forward as a leader for this franchise. Having a new coach could certainly help as well. Don't count out Noah Dobson. Brock Nelson was actually points per game better than Matthew Barzal, but I think that Barzal's going to come out on top this upcoming season. He was 73 games played this past year, just 15 goals. He's not a huge goal scorer. He's a huge playmaker, though. 44 assists for 59 points. I don't know if he'll get quite to a point per game, especially with how the scoring is kind of distributed on those three lines for the New York Islanders. But yeah, could he get to 68, 70 plus points? Yeah, I think that's fairly realistic for this upcoming year. Next up, Detroit Red Wings. I've selected Dylan Larkin. I think he led the team in scoring this past year. Lucas Raymond is going to have something to say about that. He did cool off toward the end of the year, so I know that that was just a rookie season, right? They have to get used to playing 82 games. So for now, I still think it's Dylan Larkin's scoring title to lose here. You've also got, of course, Tyler Bertuzzi, and you have Moritz Seider, although he does play pretty evenly two-way. So I don't think he's going to explode for like more than 65 points this next year, although I hope so. I love the guy. But Dylan Larkin, absolutely getting it done in the prime of his career. This past season, 71 games, 31 goals, 38 assists for 69 points. I think he's going to top that. I think he's going to be probably in the upper 70s for this upcoming year. Next up, Winnipeg Jets, Kyle Connor. Now, Nikolai Ehlers is another player who I considered for this, but he didn't get quite as much ice time as Kyle Connor did this past season. And being in the prime of his career, I think it's Connor's title to lose here. He led the team last year in 79 games with 47 goals, 46 assists for 93 points. Now, can he keep it up to that degree? He's certainly a terrific goal scorer. I don't know if he's going to quite match that this upcoming year, but that is going to be, I think, more or less his ceiling for the next 4 or 5 years. I think he's going to be hovering around 88 to maybe 90 points. Next up, I got the Arizona Coyotes, and I've selected Clayton Keller, although Nick Schmaltz actually was a better point per game player last season. They play together. It's going to be interesting to see how somebody like Barrett Hayton could maybe fit in there. And don't forget, Shane Gostisbehere was actually not that far behind, but I think that a couple of these forwards had missed significant time. So Keller, he missed 15 games this past year. So 67 games, 28 goals, 35 assists for 63 points. I think that he's going to top that, not by a huge margin, but is he going to be around 70 points by the end of next season? Absolutely. He's going to have all the opportunity to do so. Now, for the Vancouver Canucks, the logical pick here would be JT Miller. And I know that it's a contract season for him, and there have been all sorts of trade talks about him getting moved to another team. But even if he stays with the Canucks, I think he's going to have a great year. But I think there's another gear for Elias Pettersson to reach this upcoming season. So I'm going to go with Petey. Let me know in the comments, guys. Of course, you also have Quinn Hughes, who he's not too far away from a point per game in his young career. And you also have Bo Horvat, who can score tons of goals, especially in the clutch. But I'm going to go with Petey to kind of take a little bit of a road less traveled here. So this past season, 80 games, 32 goals, 36 assists for 68 points. Yeah, that was a 31-point difference between him and Miller. But I don't know. I just think it's going to be somebody else this next year. Miller is a fantastic player, but I think that maybe he regresses a little bit offensively. That doesn't mean that he can't, of course, help out in other ways for his team. Just a quick pause here, Twisters. I love making videos for you guys, and I want to build on this upcoming season. One thing I'm going to introduce to this channel are memberships. So if you're interested in getting member exclusive content in addition to the videos I upload here for free and my live streams, be sure to see the video description down below. I have a survey. I'm just trying to gauge what people's interest would be for a membership, what kind of content you would like to see. So take a look if you haven't already and show your support. Give me some feedback there, and I'll take a look at that and consider your inputs for our upcoming memberships. Thank you. New York Rangers are next, and I've selected Artemi Panarin. I think that that's a pretty clear-cut decision there with his playmaking capabilities. Let's see how he performs if they add Alexis Lafreniere on that top line. That would certainly be interesting. Of course, Mika Zibanejad is going to get a lot of attention as well. Can't count out Adam Fox. That guy is capable of being at least a point per game from the defense. But I'll take Artemi Panarin. He was at 96 points this past year in 35 games. I can see him being in the low 90s again. He's still somewhat in the prime of his career and is a terrific playmaker. But yeah, maybe regresses a little bit. But I think the Rangers overall could still put the puck in the net quite a bit. Vincent Trocheck was a nice addition for them in the offseason as well. Now for the Carolina Hurricanes, I've selected Sebastian Aho. He led the team in scoring this previous season. And now without Pacioretty, I think that he's going to take it up upon himself to contribute even more offensively, as he's really just coming into the prime of his career. Andrei Svechnikov certainly could have an opportunity to be the team's top scorer if he's playing on the top line. But that being said, yes, Aho, 79 games played this past season, 37 goals, including 13 on the power play, and I think that Carolina really needs to figure things out with the man advantage after they really failed in that department in the postseason last year. And he ended up with 81 points this past season. I think he's going to be over. I think he's upper 80s, if not close to 90. Now we're going to the Anaheim Ducks. A little difficult here. Some people might think Troy Terry is going to keep building on his season. And so I'm going to give a little bit of a hot take. I'll say Trevor Zegras, right? 61 points in 75 games, including 23 goals. I think he's going to be at least over, I'd say at least over 70 here, maybe closer to 75. Doesn't mean Terry can't get to that point, but Zegras has a ton of upside as one of the most creative players in the NHL today. Isn't that crazy? In just 1 year. Now to the Edmonton Oilers, it's Connor McDavid. I thought about Leon Draisaitl, but really McDavid the past couple of seasons has been absolutely magnificent. You saw what he did in the playoffs. Draisaitl too, for that matter, excuse me. But with the way that McDavid's able to drive plays, I mean, could this guy explode for maybe 135, if not 140 points? I mean, look at 2 seasons ago. In 56 games, he had 105 points. That was ridiculous. So it was almost like this last year was a bit of a down year for him, except for when they got to the playoffs. Anyway, I think McDavid's going to top what he did this past season. 44 goals, 79 assists for 123 points. I think he's at least above a $130. I'll say a $135 for McJesus. Now to the Vegas Golden Knights, and I've chosen Jack Eichel. Now, Eichel hasn't played a full season in quite some time, and this past year was a bit of a mixed bag for him, right? 34 games, 11 goals, 14 assists for 25 points. I'm not sure if he's going to be at that kind of point per game pace that he was more or less with the Sabres, but I think he's going to have a nice resurgence and get close to maybe about 75 points this upcoming season. Mark Stone has put up 73 points as well in a season before, but I think it's going to be Eichel driving a lot of the play and kind of having the most influence on the outcome for that top line for the Golden Knights, and Marchessault as well is kind of in that running, even though he's never been quite at that point per game pace. At least I don't think so. Now to the Nashville Predators. Last year, Roman Josi had 96 points to lead the team, even though Matt Duchene and also Ryan Johansson and Philip Forsberg had kind of career resurgences. Is that a plural word? I don't know. You also got Tanner Jeannot. Don't count him out, but I think Roman Josi is still capable of putting up over a point per game, and I don't know if I can say the same for Forsberg. You guys know I'm a little critical of him, and Matt Duchene. So Josi this past year had 23 goals, very impressive for a defenseman, 63 assists for 96 points. Again, I'm going to say that he is under his total from last year, but this guy could still put the team on his back in more ways than one, and I still think he has a really good chance of leading the team offensively this upcoming season, especially quarterbacking that first power play. Now for the Montreal Canadiens, a little confusing here between Nick Suzuki and Cole Caulfield. I'm going to choose Suzuki. He's more seasoned, even though both players were just about at a point per game pace when Martin St. Louis came in as head coach with 37 games to play this past season. So Suzuki, 82 games, 21 goals, 40 assists for 61 points. I think he's a 75-point player this upcoming year. Now to the Tampa Bay Lightning, and I've chosen Nikita Kucherov. Steven Stamkos had a tremendous year this past season, especially while Kucherov was out. Stammer ended up with 106 points, and I don't know if he's going to get quite there, but he's going to get close. But either way, Nikita Kucherov has absolutely exploded before. His career best is 128 back in 2018-2019. Do I think that he can get back to that level? I'm not entirely sure, but he was an absolute monster in the regular season when he came back from injury and also in the playoffs. So in 47 games, he had 25 goals, 44 assists for 69 points. I think he's going to be around where Stammer was this past season, and Stamkos could easily be above 95 this upcoming year. So I think about 105 for Kucherov. Now for the Colorado Avalanche, and so I've chosen Nathan MacKinnon. Now, Mikko Rantanen was the team's leading scorer last season, and he could be this upcoming year. And damn it, I really wanted to make the case for Cale Makar. Kind of like Yossi, I think that Makar is easily like a 90-point player this upcoming season. He could score way more, I imagine. It's just that he's deployed to where he doesn't necessarily have to take the most shots on offense. So I'll stick with MacKinnon here. His career best is 99 in a full season. Last season, he had 88 points in 65 games. I think Nate Dogg is gonna, I'll say he tops 100 this upcoming season. But again, Makar, Rantanen, they can't be all that far behind. Landeskog too, he's at least a point per game player. All right, Pittsburgh Penguins. I wanted to say Brian Rust here because, you know, he always falls in under the radar, but I'm going to go with Jay Gensel, and Crosby was actually higher points per game last season. Malkin was a point per game player as well, but Jay Gensel is coming into his own, and I don't see why he can't lead this team in scoring, even though I wouldn't be surprised if Crosby kind of takes the team on his back. But yeah, this past season, I don't know why I didn't write this down, but Gensel had, I believe, 84 points in a full season of play. Does he, up that to 90 points? Yeah, sure. I think that he can get to that point. Now for the Florida Panthers, and of course they acquired Matthew Tkachuk in the offseason. I'm going to say it is actually Sasha Barkov. He did have a higher points per game this past season than Matthew Tkachuk. You also have to consider that Barkov hasn't always had the most skilled of wingers to play with, because Huberdeau would play separately, at least looking at last year. So I think Barkov, he's really found a good goal-scoring touch, and I think that he could, build on that, maybe be over 100 points with Matthew Tkachuk. So he played only 67 games this past year, 39 goals, 49 assists for 88 points. That's a 108-point pace. Again, I think that he's going to be around 100, and so that would possibly top a career high, which previously was 96. Even if especially they move Sam Reinhart to that top line, I think Barkov could easily get to the century mark. I think Tkachuk's going to fit in just fine with those guys too. All right, Philadelphia. The next 5 teams here to close things out were a little difficult because, yeah, Philadelphia doesn't have one stud on the team per se. Last year it was Travis Konechny who led the team in scoring, but I think that Sean Couturier, who has put up similar point totals before in a full season, I think he's going to have a good career resurgence now that he's healthy. So this past season, only 29 games and 17 points. His career high is 76. I think he's going to get close to about 70 this upcoming year. Konechny, it'll be interesting. I honestly haven't watched enough of him to really evaluate how effective he is offensively, but assuming that the opportunity is there for Couturier, I think he's going to steal that and kind of help be a leader for the Flyers in this upcoming season. Cam Atkinson can still produce fairly well. Joel Farabee when he's healthy. Now for the Buffalo Sabres, last year was Tage Thompson just coming out of nowhere and dropping 38 goals. Jeff Skinner had 33 of his own. Victor Olofsson is a good finisher. Rasmus Dahlin is just getting better and better. And Dylan Cousins, I think, is going to break out. I talked about him in my breakouts video. But I'm going to say it's Alex Tuch. Yeah, just keep him in the top 6 there. Tuch this past season in 50 games, 12 goals and 26 assists. That is that's 38 points on the season, but that's a 62-point pace for 82 games. So yeah, if he's healthy, I think he's going to flirt with 70 this upcoming year. And despite good seasons from Thompson, Skinner, and so forth, I don't know, maybe those guys take a bit of a step back, especially if the other line mates around them are going to get more opportunities. And so with some of that youth there with a guy like Dylan Cousins, yeah, they're going to get some more ice time. Casey Middlestat too. So we'll see what happens. It's going to be an interesting year for the Sabres. Now for this next team, Seattle Kraken. I mean, just make a guess. Honestly, it could be anybody. It could be McCann. It could be Eberle. It could be Burakovsky, who just came over from the Avalanche. It could be Yanni Gourde. I expect a good season from him. Oliver Bjorkstrand, who had, God, what was that, 57 points last year with Columbus. I'm going to go with Matty Beniers, though, because this guy had 3 goals and 6 assists in just 10 games. And again, the opportunity for him just could be there in this upcoming year if the Kraken aren't going to make the playoffs. Why not play this guy and give him a chance in all three zones? So I'm going to say he's going to be at least a 60-point player. I know, bit of a hot take, but he certainly has something to build on from this past season. So why not go with Beniers here? And if you guys think otherwise, let me know in the comments if there's somebody who's kind of head and shoulders above the other players I just talked about here. All right, two more teams. St. Louis Blues, a team that had 9 20-goal scorers and brings back all but one of them. Of course, that one player being David Perron. So you've got Robert Thomas. You've got Tarasenko, who was the team's leader last year with 82 points, I believe. You've got Pavel Buchnevich, who had kind of a breakthrough season, career season as well. This is my pick, though. I'm going Jordan Kyrou. Again, creativity. Some of the best in the NHL with Jordan Kyrou. This past season, although he was certainly kind of shut down in the playoffs, 74 games played, though, in the regular season, 27 goals, 48 assists for 75 points. I think this guy could at least see this leapfrog by 10 points, if not be closer to 90 points this upcoming year. Again, I just really like the finish and the creativity of this player. A lot of people think that Robert Thomas can be at that level. I don't know if Tarasenko can be for another year. I think that was kind of a breakthrough for him, but we'll see. St. Louis, again, a very deep team offensively. And lastly, the Ottawa Senators. I have no idea whatsoever. They bring in Giroux. They bring in, of course, Alex DeBrincat, fresh off of over 40 goals this past season. You got Josh Norris. You got Drake Batherson. But as I talked about in that breakouts video, guys, watch those if you haven't already. I'm going to go with Tim Stützle, the 3rd overall draft pick just a few seasons ago. This past season, 79 games, 22 goals, 36 assists for 58 points. I think he's going to be close to a point per game. And I think that, certainly there are other players on that team, Norris, Batherson, DeBrincat, who will certainly make a case for that as well. But this guy's an RFA at the end of the season, and I think he wants to see a big fat paycheck, just like Josh Norris and Drake Batherson did. So I'll go with Timmy Stützle for the Ottawa Senators. Anyway, guys, who are your breakouts? Let me know in the comments below. And stick around for more fun videos like these, more previews for divisions, predictions for this upcoming season, and let me know if you ever have any video ideas in the comment section down below. So, hope you enjoyed this. Hit the thumbs up, subscribe if you're new here and like stuff like this, and follow me on social media. I'm on Twitter, Instagram, and you can see the video description for that. I also accept donations and super thanks. Don't forget about that if you want to show your support for the channel. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Once again, I'm Nick. I'll catch you twisters later. Ciao.